The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah, go Cowboys!
This is Mick Shots.
Streaming live on DallasCowboys.com and the official Dallas Cowboys app.
And now your hosts, Mickey Spagnola, Everson Walls, Nate Newton, and Bill Jones.
Oh, what a beautiful morning it is here in Oxnard, California. It is, truthfully, day number one of Cowboys Camp 2023. It is day number one because there will be football players on a football field behind us. And this is Mick Shots, Bill Jones with Mickey Spagnola. No Everson Walls, no Nate Newton. Nate will be joining us as we go along here from Oxnard over the course of the next several weeks. Everson will eventually join us at the Star in Frisco. But, Mickey, it is a glorious football Wednesday.
Sun's out, sky's blue, 68 degrees, and I already did 10, 15-minute show with Nate this morning when he called me at 6 a.m.
But it was 8 a.m. his time.
Yeah, right. Did I wake you up? And I said, you missed by 30 seconds because my alarm just went off.
So this was just your own two-man show.
I told him, I
an
said, you
audience
know
of
what?
two, you and
Just
Nate.
all we did right now should have been when we started the show. You need to be here. And he goes, well, I got to wait till the pads come on.
Okay, all right. And the pads will come on Monday. We've got a ramp-up period, of course, by NFL rules, according to the CBA. And, of course, the team arrived here in Oxnard on Monday. We had the State of the Cowboys press conference yesterday. We've already had breaking news here in the first 36 hours here, and it's going to be fun as we go along here, as the Cowboys, of course, will be here for the next going on 3 weeks, and then the first preseason game back home in Jacksonville, and then another week here. So all told, it'll be 4 weeks here in Oxnard.
Thank goodness.
Before that second preseason game at Seattle, they will be breaking camp. But, wow, it's just great to have football back again.
Yes, it is, and it's been a while, and unfortunately, these first few practices are basically mini camp practices, so no contact.
They might be better than the current minicamp practices are, though, just because they've scaled back minicamp practices.
Well, they probably scale back this because they don't want to get fined again for too much physicality, right? We don't want the defensive backs trying to break up passes or anything, God forbid.
By the way, you can go online and see the restrictions that are in the CBA. They're very specific as to what all the teams can do during this first 4-day period. Then there's a mandatory day off for the players, which will be on the 5th day, which in the Cowboys' case will be Sunday, and then they'll put the pads on Monday.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll go through this. Basically, what we'll be able to find out here in a couple hours is just sort of how they're lining up different guys on the different units. Mike McCarthy already said that they would start the offensive line like they left off in the mini camp. So that kind of gave us a clue of what they're going to do, and I guess that suggests that Tyron Smith will be at left tackle and Tyler Smith will be at left guard, and then we'll go from there until we get to right guard, where Zack Martin, unless he showed up bright and early this morning, was not on the charter flight.
And that's
here.
one of two major stories that we have here, and we'll get to Terrence Steele as well. The other thing yesterday, the Cowboys placed the second-round draft pick, the tight end Luke Schoonmaker, on NFI. He had a previously existing plantar fascia issue with his foot that he's been dealing with throughout the offseason. And then Jordan Lewis, the veteran cornerback coming off the Liz Frank fracture last season, as expected, starts training camp on PUP.
And then and that was it. There was
so
some.
Terrence Steele is active and ready.
He's
to go.
active.
And we'll see
I don't know
how ready he is.
I was told not as ready as maybe you want him to, but the deal is when you put a guy on PUP, he can't do anything with the team. He's got to be away, and
Can't be on the practice field.
And the only person he can work with is the trainer or strength coaches. He can't even interact with his position coach. So they felt like he was far enough along that they weren't worried about a relapse or anything, but maybe not ready to start. Although what they do early, he might be able to do some of that. But they felt like by time a week or so passes that he should be good to go. But they're going to ease him in, right? Same thing with Tony Pollard. Going to ease him in. You're not trying to win the Super Bowl week 1 of training camp. You need these guys ready to start the season. So they feel pretty good about both guys being ready to start the season, but just maybe not do everything the start of training camp.
All right, so I mentioned the 2 major stories that became official yesterday, although it had leaked out last week about Zack Martin. And then Trevon Diggs signed to a long-term contract that was huge for the Cowboys. We'll get to Zack in just a second, but let's start with Trevon Diggs here. A 5-year contract extension, $97 million that can get up to $100 million, $21.25 million signing bonus. It was huge to get Trevon Diggs signed before camp started.
And even more important to him, $42.3 million guaranteed.
There you go.
And that's what we always look at, right? We got to see with the incentives, it can get just a little bit more than $100 million. But we got to see how it's, how it's mapped out. But the big thing is $42.3 million. I would imagine with half of that a signing bonus that. It could be 3 years something, and then there's those big base salaries at the end. So we'll see. But by time those base salaries would hit, the salary cap's going up, and it's going up huge next year. It may go up 25, 30 million next year when the new TV contract hits in. So that's how they're structuring contracts going forward. But that's huge to get him done because you can only next year franchise one guy, and you got to think about you're going to have Terrence Steele unless they can get him signed to a long-term deal.
You got to look at his position and what the money would be for a franchise tackle.
And I saw online somewhere where they estimate market value, and that someone estimated his market value at $13 million a year, and it's like, well, if it's that much, then let's go better get ready because they're probably not going to pay both starting offensive tackles that kind of money. But so they would like to sign him to a long-term deal. They wanted to sign Tony Pollard to a long-term deal. My information was they were working on a 3-year deal. They couldn't come to an agreement on a total, so he's going to play $10 million on the franchise tag, but he'll be a free agent too next year. So you got to factor that in. Tyler Biotish is on the final year of his contract. So they've got some contract stuff to still work on. CeeDee Lamb would be going into his 5th year option that they picked up at $17 million. They would like to sign him to a long-term deal. And then Dak Prescott's going to come along too. So, yeah.
And then Micah Parsons is going to come along
And then at some point, this is his 3rd year already, right? They've got some things that they got to take care of. They're not panicking, and I saw somebody already pointing out, well, don't worry about the future, spend your money now. Well, okay, that's fine, but there is a salary cap this year too.
And I think it's big from the Cowboys' perspective, and I like from Trevon's perspective too, that he decided to take this deal. I think I read where it makes his average per season, which is a little shade over $19 million a season with the extension, it would make him the 5th highest paid cornerback in the league. His ego could have got the best of him. I want to be paid like the best, and he understands the situation that he has here. I think he understands the market. He understands with the Cowboys, his marketability himself and the money that he can make aside from his contract. He's in a very good position here, and so I think it's a very mature way to approach his future and set his family up for generations.
So you said it averaged 19
Something a shade
close
over
to 19.
in that.
Okay, so we looked up
Well,
what
5 years, $97 million. I guess it's the extension part of that, not
Right.
not his current contract factored into that.
Right.
Would be what 19.4.
because I think he's at 4.3 base salary
Right.
this year. So we looked up what the franchise tag would be this year for a cornerback, and it was 18.1 million. So if he's averaging 19, they're looking at, well, if he was franchised this year and then next year you got to do 20% more, so that would be around 21, 22 million.
You know, if both sides want to get a deal done, it's pretty easy to
Right.
figure out what the money will be.
Yeah.
Just based off, okay, well, here's the franchise tag number now and what it would be perhaps this year, and you kind of work off of that, and you can figure out where it needs to be.
And that's why when I see this, well, just sign these guys. Well, it's got to be, good for both sides, right? And they wanted to say, everybody's like, well, the Cowboys didn't want to pay a running back. Well, they did, but they wanted to pay him within reason. And
now look around the league.
and see what's happening
running
to the
backs.
running backs, right? So it's not like they devalued it. They were trying to make an investment going forward. And from Tony Pollard's standpoint, these guys that want to bet on themselves and play on a one-year deal, and you take a chance on injury, and then you go into free agency with an injury, right? And then how do you market yourself? The other thing is he's got to look at the market value for running backs going forward. He's going to be 27 next year. Now, is somebody going to give him more than a two or 3 year deal going forward for a running back? No, because 28 years old is usually the line of demarcation between being very productive and starting to regress.
5 years in the league, and now they wouldn't have the same number of carries that Zeke had, obviously, after his first 5 years in the league. But he's getting into that range there where, okay, is he, the average career span for a starting running back, especially in the NFL,
right?
Is, got to be south of 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing you've got to also factor in and just think of what nearly happened to Dak Prescott playing on the franchise tag. He has that gruesome injury. If it was worse, the Cowboys would okay, fine, but we'll let you go into free agency and see what somebody wants to sign you, not knowing that when free agency begins, you can't walk into anybody's facility without some sort of artificial assistance, right? So that hurts your market value. So, yeah, you got to be careful saying, I'm going to play on this franchise tag.
Okay, so that brings us to Zack Martin. And
Yes.
So what do you think is going on here with Zack Martin?
Well, he wants an extension. Basically, he wants more money, right? Now, when he signed that contract, that was a pretty darn good contract. It was, 6 years, $84 million. And so as you move along, contracts increase, right? But I saw a deal where, and I'm not sure what it meant, but it said his contract value. It didn't say how they valued it, but it was the second highest next to Lindstrom's. That was $102 million that he just signed, right? Of course.
As far as interior offensive
Yeah,
linemen or
guards.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. Yeah, and so it reminds me of the story I've told you before about Greg Ellis. He signed a long-term deal, like $6-7 million, and then a year or two later, the market for defensive ends went way up, and he kind of was butthurt because he felt like he was underpaid. And we were at a lunch, Bill, and Pat Summerall, well, God rest his soul. And he was wanting to know why is Greg Ellis upset. And I was explaining to him that when he signed his contract, he signed too long, and then the market value for defensive ends went up, but he still had 2 years left on his old contract. And I said something like, unfortunately for Greg, he came along too soon. And Summerall in his deep voice goes, we all came along too soon. So that's kind of what's happening with Zack Martin right now. And, he's 32 now,
Well,
I believe, going on
he's 32.
33.
He will be 33
Right.
on November 20th. And by the way, Tyron Smith will be 33 on December 12th.
so he's the oldest.
He's older
Yeah.
than Tyron Smith, even though Tyron came into the league 3 years before Zack Martin did. Of course, Tyron came in as the 9th overall pick in 2011 after just 3 years at USC, and Zack Martin was already, a 24-year-old out of Notre Dame
Right.
when he was the 16th pick in the draft in 2014.
So I think,
I think Zach looks at what's happened with Tyron. Now, the difference here, obviously, over the last 3 years, Tyron has had a difficult time
Right.
staying on the field.
Right.
And Zach, another credit to his future Hall of Fame status is he very, very, very rarely misses games. But, I mean, you look just across the room, the offensive line room, and you see what's happened with Tyron's contract. And Zach, if he has an injury-plagued year, something like that, he could be in the same boat here in a couple of years when his contract, or next year when he's going into the last year of
next
his
year
contract.
is the last one, and
Right.
and
He's
I'm
got 2
sure
years
that's
left on his deal.
that's what he's looking at.
Right.
And this didn't just happen. They talked to him a couple weeks ago about trying to work out an extension, and now I'm thinking back to the OTAs in minicamp when he was just basically rehabbing. He said a little soft tissue something. Maybe not, right? He might have been making the first volley at a renegotiation there in the offseason. And really, for this first week, he's not going to miss anything.
Except for money.
Yeah. Well, and from what I keep reading, for a veteran under contract, $50,000 a day. Right. And it's not supposed to be waived either. Before you can say, oh, that's okay. It's I think in the CBA that you got to pay that. So now you can negotiate that into the extension, obviously.
That's what he's banking on.
Right, yeah. But otherwise, it's a fine, right? So, but we'll see where that goes. I think they'll figure that out. I don't see him missing any game time. And, yeah, gosh, he's so good. He can probably miss all of training camp and still be Zack Martin. As long as you stay healthy.
Right. Producer Supreme, Chris Beam over there. This is, of course, our first broadcast from here at Oxnard. And so the same format goes where we're about time to take this first break. And Miller Lite is the sponsor. Hey, Mickey, you have grown so much in your stature that Miller Lite wants to sponsor Mick Shots now.
Because it's the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. And from now on, it'll be Miller time, and I've got some
you got some new reads?
New reads, although one's an old one.
All right.
And I've got a Miller Lite shirt to wear, so I'll put that on next time.
All right, it'll be a regular feature here on Mick Shots. We're just getting started with our first segment of Mick Shots for the 2023 season, and we're back in just a moment.
I'm Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Blockchain.com is one of the most trusted ways to buy, sell, and trade crypto. Whether you're always on the go or stay closer to home, Blockchain.com is just a few taps away. Put the power of crypto in your pocket, so no matter where you are, you can trade on your terms and build a crypto portfolio to fit your life. For crypto pros, rookies, and anyone in between, Blockchain.com makes it easy to own a piece of the future. Blockchain.com, trusted by millions, trusted by America's team.
The Medal of Honor is our country's highest military award for valor in combat. More than 40 million individuals have served in the armed forces since the Civil War. Fewer than 4,000 have received the Medal of Honor. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a place to preserve these legacies and inspire America. It's being built right next door to the Dallas Cowboys in Texas. Help us honor our country's greatest heroes. Learn more and get involved at mohmuseum.org.
Star Sports Tours is the only official fan travel partner of the Dallas Cowboys, offering exclusive game weekend travel packages with pre-game sideline access and photo ops with current players, cheerleaders, and Cowboy legends. You want to stay at a team hotel, attend the best tailgate party in Texas, tour the Star, and talk X's and O's with me, Everson Walls? With Star Sports Tours, you can. Visit cowboystravel.com to book your travel package today.
We know that juicy, cheesy, grilled to perfection burger sounds amazing, but it does sound like something is missing. Pepsi, baby. The yin to this burger's yang. Burgers and Pepsi go together like burgers and Pepsi. This perfect blending of flavors makes every bite of lettuce, every sesame seed on the bun, and every sip of that crisp, refreshing, ice-cold cola a journey to Foodtopia. Burgers, better with Pepsi. That's what I like.
Back to Mick Shots.
K-Post Roofing and Waterproofing is still with us, Bill.
Amazingly.
Proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys. From corporate homes to your home, have your roof checked by choice, not by chance. Call now, 214-225-4860, kpostcompany.com, and I bet they don't go walking down the neighborhood streets knocking on your door after a hailstorm.
Oh, there you go. That's something that we're always looking for.
I finally had my roof checked from that last hailstorm where I could have taken batting practice in my backyard if I had a batting helmet on. And the door just knock. So people that fixed my roof last time, I told them, all right, come by, check it. If it's good or bad, put your sign out there, so they quit knocking on my door. So we passed. But he put the sign out, and that silenced everybody.
Oh, there you go. That's some very smart thinking there.
Yeah, how about
All
that?
right, I just...
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they'll do that for you, too. Put the sign on the door. John McClain, veteran reporter down in Houston. He grew up a Cowboys fan, I believe, and went to Baylor or whatever, but of course he's covered Houston sports for decades. He tweeted this just moments ago. I love training camp. My first was 1977. I feel like I did on the first day of school every year. The start of Texans camp means we're one step closer to the start of the season. We can say that about Cowboys camp too. And Jerry was talking about it on at the press conference. In fact, it was the last question, basically, of the press conference yesterday. He was talking about the drive-in every year and how sentimental he gets, and gets to his room here, and then he settles into his room, then he slips out the back door and sleeps at the Biltmore.
Yeah, that was great. Well, so Jerry's first training camp was 89.
89, yep.
So
in Thousand Oaks.
What do we
and then
have
the next year they went to Austin.
89 makes this about 34.
It's 34 years, and this is the 17th year now that the team has trained in Oxnard. And, of course, there were a few years in there that they split training camp between San Antonio and Oxnard. And they had the 1 year. COVID year, obviously, was in Frisco, but basically the Oxnard journey began, I think, 22 years ago.
So when was your first?
My first training camp was 1982. My first year working for a television station in Lubbock, and had the great fortune of having a news director who loved the Cowboys, and so it was not a hard sell at all for us to come out to Thousand Oaks for a week. And it's just amazing how things have changed over the decades, and even how we do business. And when we're sitting here doing a podcast,
right?
When we get done here, I'm going to do something with Mickey for CBS, where I've got Mickey. They have supplied me with 2 wireless microphones, and I use my phone to...
Did you get the little stand for your phone?
I got a little tripod for the phone and everything. We're going to set that up afterwards. But getting back to 1982, back in that day, we used to come out and cover training camp, and each day we would then drive to LAX from Thousand Oaks, and it was a good hour, especially through LA traffic, and put our tape on a plane that they would... send it back to, in that case, Lubbock. So I would get there like the next day, and they'd put the story together back then.
I remember that. I mean, my first camp was 85, so I've done every one except 88 since then. And so
85?
85
was your first
for a
one.
week.
Okay.
So like 30, I think it comes to about 38 years, and this year. And so, yeah, I remember being in Thousand Oaks and the TV stations making drives to L.A., the Cowboys sending stuff back and they had to go to L.A. to put it on some overnight service to get it to the.
And then by the time Jerry bought the team in '89, everybody had satellite trucks, big old satellite trucks.
They'd be all
that they
parked
would drive
back there,
in.
right?
Yeah, and
or in Thousand Oaks, I guess, for
it
one
was
year.
In Thousand Oaks, and then and in fact the satellite trucks were still a thing even
when we came here. Returned,
yeah,
right?
For sure. And then here in the last decade, I mean, literally, TV cameramen, they have little boxes about that big called a live view unit that they are able to transmit what they're shooting out here on the field that immediately goes live back to the TV station. So, but it's just, I mean, the whole, you think about it when you come out here, and it's great to have this access and be out here and so forth, but it's also a grind. I mean, the day starts early and ends late, but there are so many. You get into a mindset that you're at summer camp, you know, basically.
No.
It's like you're a kid at summer camp, and there are so many great memories through the years of what happened, what has happened at training camp.
We could write books,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, you said, John was talking about like the first day of school. Mm-hmm. So Monday when we were getting ready to charter flight, and it was at 1 o'clock, and I don't know if it was anxiety or anticipation, I woke up at 5 in the morning and couldn't go back to sleep. And I'm going, come on. Now we're, still sleeping on Central Time, but we're living on Pacific Coast Time. And it takes about almost a week to get used to it. The time change anyway.
And then you have to get used to it when you get back home.
Right.
All right, team on the practice field today. What are some of the things that you're looking for just in terms of position battles during camp and that sort of thing that you want to keep an eye on to get started?
We had a question on DallasCowboys.com for today. The question was, what under the radar position battle are you looking at? And I go, well, first of all, there's nothing under the radar with the Cowboys. And second of all, once the offensive line is settled, and assuming if Tyron Smith is playing left tackle at the level we're used to seeing him, meaning Tyler Smith can play left guard, I mean, the battles are for backup spots and roster spots other than kicker. Now, we're going to keep an eye on the kicker, right? We're going to sit there and chart every kick those guys have between Tristan Vizcaino and Brandon Aubrey that they signed after the off-season workouts. He'd been in the USFL and kicked awfully well, which is a really good story.
By the way, Michael Gelkin in the Morning News, I give credit to him. He's got a great story today on Brandon Aubrey and his journey. He played for the Cowboys when he was 5 years old.
Right, but he played soccer at Plano.
Go ahead.
Yeah, played soccer at Plano. Was scholarship soccer athlete at Notre Dame.
By the way, and what did Notre Dame do? His first year when he was a freshman at Notre Dame,
they won the
national championship,
and he got drafted into professional
soccer.
I was going to say hockey.
Major League Soccer. He was a first-round draft pick of Toronto FC. What did they do his rookie season?
Did they win a championship?
They won the MLS Cup title, and then and it's a long story how he then transferred over to football. But with the Birmingham Stallions and the USFL, what did they do his first year?
And second year?
They won the
USFL title.
championship.
And do you know who his kicking coach was at Birmingham the second year?
You tell me.
Chris Boniol.
That's who I was going to guess, but I wanted you to have that honor.
Thank you. Since I got a text from Chris Boniol after they signed him, and it said, "Darn, you just signed my kicker." And I was like, what's he talking about?
He's got to go looking for a kicker for the Birmingham Stallions.
He was the kicking special teams coach in Birmingham. And it's like, well, how did you get that job? And he goes, Skip Holtz was the head coach. So Skip Holtz coached all those years at La Tech. And Boniel, that's where he went to college, so there was a connection with La Tech.
There always is a connection with these coaches.
I wrote about it on DallasCowboys.com. Boniel was really high on him. He said he's got the leg, he's got the talent, he's got the demeanor, and he said the last thing I told him before he left was, now you got to compete, because that's what it comes down to. It's competition, and you're not just competing with Vizcaino, you're competing with the rest of the league and anybody else out there that doesn't have a job. And I said, you think he can handle it? He said, he handled it so far. I said, and we ended up talking on the phone, and I said, so when he competes, you know, you got to have the right temperament, right? And he goes, oh, he's got that. I said, now the hard part is they're trying to replace a kicker, and the Cowboys are going to have trouble with this, that made 90% of his field goals last year. You don't find those guys just walking on the street. And Boniel goes, my guy made 92% of his field goals.
He was 14 for 15 on field goals this year with Birmingham,
right.
And he was 35 for 35 on extra points.
And so here's how this stuff works. I don't know if you remember Kevin Holtz. He worked for the Cowboys back in the early 90s, son of Lou Holtz, right? And so I mentioned that Skip Holtz was Aubrey's head coach in Birmingham. So he calls me. And he goes, oh, I just saw the story about the kicker and, you know, my brother and everything. He goes, you know how he got started? Because Skip, the only reason Skip knew about him was John Carney. Carney was doing kicking.
He trains kickers.
Trainers.
Yeah.
Well, when this guy decided, Aubrey, he wanted to get into football, Carney ended up being his mentor, his teacher. And if I'm remembering the story, Carney, and I'd have to look this up if I remember, I didn't write it down. Carney had a connection with his dad somewhere along the line, Arkansas or Notre Dame. And so there was all these connection with Brandon Aubrey, who we probably, I watched that championship game, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't know who he was or what he was doing.
I watched it looking for a kicker.
Right.
I said, well, as I watched it, I said, I guarantee you John Fossil was watching this.
Well,
and of course, Cavante Turpin came out of the USFL
right.
last year, and I said, okay, they've got to have their eye on somebody, because otherwise they would have signed another kicker.
Right, and they kept saying we're watching everything, right? Well, what they meant when John said that was Boniel told me he came to one of their games to scout Aubrey in person. So it was pretty good that the connections there, and you know, and I'm sure the Cowboys probably checked with Boniel and said, what's this guy got? And he said he had talked to Fossil about it.
And John Carney went to Notre Dame.
He did. It was Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was the connection.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, a connection from 1987. It's amazing how this stuff works. And by the way, the last time Brandon Aubrey, before the Birmingham Stallions, the last time he played for a football team, meaning an American football
right.
team, not soccer, was in middle school in Plano, Schimmelfing Middle School in Plano. He was the kicker and wide receiver.
They have kickers in junior high now, huh?
Well, they did. Yeah. So can't wait to feature him on the preseason game.
Oh, absolutely. I can't wait to talk to him when he gets out here.
That's right. All right, time for another break, and we will continue with more Mick Shots here in just a moment.
The Medal of Honor is our country's highest military award for valor in combat. More than 40 million individuals have served in the armed forces since the Civil War. Fewer than 4,000 have received the Medal of Honor. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a place to preserve these legacies and inspire America. It's being built right next door to the Dallas Cowboys in Texas. Help us honor our country's greatest heroes. Learn more and get involved at mohmuseum.org.
I'm Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Blockchain.com is one of the most trusted ways to buy, sell, and trade crypto. Whether you're always on the go or stay closer to home, blockchain.com is just a few taps away. Put the power of crypto in your pocket, so no matter where you are, you can trade on your terms and build a crypto portfolio to fit your life. For crypto pros, rookies, and anyone in between, blockchain.com makes it easy to own a piece of the future. Blockchain.com, trusted by millions, trusted by America's team.
Hey, Cowboys fans, ready to spice up your next watch party? Bring Yo Quiero guacamole and be the game day hero. Yo Quiero means I want, and we know you want great, fresh-tasting, ready-to-serve guacamole for your home gating and tailgating events. Made with real avocados and the perfect blend of spices, it will be the star of any party. You can find us at your local Albertsons or Tom Thumb in the deli section. If you can't find it, talk to your store manager and tell them, Yo Quiero guacamole.
Star Sports Tours is the only official fan travel partner of the Dallas Cowboys, offering exclusive game weekend travel packages with pre-game sideline access and photo ops with current players, cheerleaders, and Cowboy legends. You want to stay at a team hotel, attend the best tailgate party in Texas, tour the Star, and talk X's and O's with me, Everson Walls? With Star Sports Tours, you can. Visit cowboystravel.com to book your travel package today.
The official 2023 Dallas Cowboys Star Magazine Training Camp Preview is now available. This edition features scouting report, position analysis, a pull-out schedule, poster, and articles from your favorite Cowboy writers, by the way. And you can get your training camp preview today at dallascowboys.com/thestar. And I was one of your favorite writers for that magazine.
If he doesn't say so himself.
It says favorite right there.
I'm the one who's supposed to say that.
I was supposed to set you up for that. I came up with this interesting thought about the Cowboys having gone 12-5. It was their first double-digit victory season since 95-96, right? And it occurred to me, you went 12-5, but you didn't get to where you wanted to go, right? And how difficult it is now to pick yourself up off the ground. They don't grandfather you back into the playoffs. You don't grandfather you into a 10-win season. You got to start all over. And so I was talking to Dan Quinn, and you know what? And what brought this up when Giannis talked about getting the Milwaukee Bucks getting beat in the first round, and somebody asked if the season was a failure, and he goes, no, it wasn't a failure. We just didn't get to where we wanted to go. He goes, you can't label everything when you come up short a failure, and he used the example of Michael Jordan. You know, however many years he played, and they think they won 6 championships. He says, so all the other years for Michael Jordan were failures? And so I asked Dan Quinn about it, and Dan Quinn had an interesting thought. He goes, we have to address that. And he goes, and the way I explain it to is you're climbing a mountain. And he goes, you're not starting from the bottom, you're starting from the base camp, like where that's kind of where you left off. And now you got to make the climb, and you don't talk about failure. He goes, I never used that word. Mike McCarthy said, never use that word. But for the Cowboys, they've got to be able to start from scratch, but it's not starting from the bottom. You're starting from where you were. Now you got to keep improving. And he goes, and that's
they're on the
tough
front
thing.
porch.
Yeah, the front porch, right?
They're on the front porch.
They're not on the grass, right? They took the steps up to the front porch.
I thought Mike McCarthy was about to quote Bum Phillips.
Yeah, I know.
When he went down that road about banging down the door.
Knocked the door down.
Yeah. That goes way back to 1979,
probably.
1980. Yeah.
When he was with the Oilers and couldn't get to the
Former
Super Bowl.
Cowboy great Mike Renfro, who previously was with the Houston Oilers. He was actually inbounds and he was rolled out of bounds. Steeler fans will say otherwise. But and then they came home to the Astrodome, and in front of a large crowd of the Astrodome, Bum Phillips said, they're going to kick the door down next year.
With
or
so
whatever,
many
which they
words,
didn't do.
yeah.
Something like that.
But you got to be on the porch to kick the door down.
Yep.
And so I think that's the way Mike McCarthy looked at it.
There are
so that story's by the way, in that preview magazine.
By the way, there are players around the league as camp kicks off here kicking the financial door down at their local bank. And Justin Herbert, the latest yesterday, as he gets a 5-year, $262 million extension.
0.5.
Yeah, okay, I'll forget the 0.5.
That's $500,000 there, Bill.
And averages out to, 52 and a half a year. So as far as the average salary goes, he's up there at the top. And Joe Burrow, you're now on the clock.
And so we thought when Lamar Jackson signed his 5-year deal, that was tops at $260. We thought when Hurts signed his, it was $255. So as you see, it keeps going up. And Dak's got, 2 years left on his deal?
That's right. Dak sees that, and
we'll have another guy missing the beginning of training camp.
I just saw this. Patrick Mahomes now, and his contract is so outdated.
Right.
He is the average salary per year. He ranks 3rd in his division.
That's good, right?
But
guess no one's got
Justin Herbert and Russell Wilson.
No one else has got a 20-year contract, though, right? Or whatever the hell it was. Was it 10, 8, 10?
Something like that.
Yeah.
The Giants have signed their left tackle, Andrew Thomas, to an extension in the neighborhood of $117 million. So a lot of teams getting things done right now, but there are some holdouts around the league too. Not only Zack Martin here, but also Nick Bosa in San Francisco, Chris Jones in Kansas City are holding out.
It's all about the money.
Mm-hmm.
It's never
What did Jerry
right?
say in the press conference that he never saw a player walk away unhappy after going for the money?
Right. Well, and just think about how it's increased. I remember that year in Thousand Oaks, we were waiting for Tony Dorsett to show up. And I think it might.
See, those training camp holdouts were some of the greatest memories we have of training camps.
Or when he showed up in '86 after they signed Herschel Walker to a $1 million a year contract that was unheard of.
Out of the USFL.
Right. And so Dorsett shows up, and everybody asked him, what did you think about the Cowboys signing Herschel Walker? And he said, feel like $1 million man. He was already negotiating for a pay raise, right?
And then there was the Randy White holdout one year, and he was fishing in East Texas.
It was Lake Tawakoni, I think.
Okay.
And somebody was fishing there that I think worked at either the Fort Worth paper or the Dallas Times Herald, and they ran into Randy fishing on the lake because everybody was looking for him. They couldn't find him, right?
Uh-huh.
He just went out there and got out in East Texas and was fishing as he was holding out that year.
All right, 2-minute warning goes to both benches here as we wrap up this edition of Mick Shots. You got a parting Mick Shot for us that you're looking at today?
You know what? We were talking about under the radar, position battles,
Mm-hmm.
and I think maybe the most I don't know if it's under the radar, but it's Tony Pollard and who at running back. And I think that'll be one that we keep an eye on. And I still got in the back of my mind that Ezekiel Elliott hasn't signed with anybody.
He has not signed with anybody.
And
That's
he's still out
right.
there.
And we're seeing more and more with each passing day what the running back market looks like.
Who just signed for $3 million? Somebody, one of those guys, one of the running backs that was out there signed for $3 million.
Was it $3 million?
1 year deal, too.
Yeah. Darrington Evans signed with Buffalo yesterday because they lost Naheem Hines to an injury. This was a non-football injury. He's sitting on his jet ski at the lake.
I saw that.
And someone crashes into him, and he tears his ACL.
So now they're going to put in contracts, no jet skiing. So that's my parting shot. You got one?
I'm just excited to be to be able to watch guys out on the football field, and we'll see what happens. You know, there's always something that happens. You know, and these, as you put it, the under the radar position battles, these teams are all put together during the offseason.
Correct.
Starting with the new league year back in March, and then the draft. And now it's just very interesting to follow it as things happen. You know, a player gets injury tweak, you know, not a season-ending thing. Oh, we need a reinforcement at that position. Or, well, this rookie that we drafted, maybe he won't be ready. Maybe, you know, we haven't – the third rounder that we thought might be able to push somebody, maybe we need veteran help there. I mean, Cowboys look at their offensive line. What's going on there as far as the health of the players, and do they need any more assistance there?
Well, if you think back to last year, it was training camp right when they brought in Malik Hooker.
Yep.
And it took a while for him to get going, so
That's right.
you never know.
And look how strong that safety position is now.
Yeah. So injuries, as Brad Sham would always say, we go to training camp to see who gets hurt.
Yep. So and hopefully nobody gets hurt today on the first day of practice out here in training camp. All right, that does it for this edition of Mick Shots. The break is coming up here in 15 minutes, and we will be back together on Friday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. Dallas time. Make it a great first day of practice wherever you are, and we'll see you again on Friday here on Mick Shots.
See ya.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!